Every 4th of July for the last few years, NPR has posted line by line the Declaration of Independence on its social media channels. I realized years ago, reading through those posts, that I did not know much of what the Declaration of Independence actually said. I mean, I knew about it in the abstract, in theory, but I did not know that the first good chunk of the text is an accusation about the misuse of power. The King of England was called a tyrant who, amongst other things, cuts off our trade with all parts of the world, imposes taxes on us without our consent, deprives us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury, and transports us beyond seas to be tried for pretend offenses. The document is, at its basis, about power and who has the right to wield it. Many of the framers of our republic thought that sovereign power, the power to determine life and death, belonged to people, well, white male landowning people, and those who they chose to represent them. Now, the Declaration of Independence is critical to us in the United States, but in truth, the authors were engaging in a very old conversation, the argument of every generation of humankind in every place and in every time. Every group of people have to come to grips with power, how it is used by them, for them, and against them. Who holds it, and who cannot be trusted with it, and whether or not power should ever have limits. I cannot help but think about power when I read our text this morning. Now, traditionally on Easter, we read one of the 4 gospel accounts of Jesus' resurrection. While it was still dark, John says, Jesus was raised from the dead. Matthew says a stone was rolled away during an earthquake. Luke remembers 2 angels who act as messengers to startled female disciples, while Mark only remembers 1. But in all of them, though, it is clear that Christ is risen from the dead. 2,000 years after the fact, that story feels mysterious and supernatural and wholly a matter of spiritual import. But I was drawn to our 1 Corinthians text this year. Paul, our writer, is in conversation with one of the churches he has planted, and they are struggling with just about everything. They're not sure how to live a life of faith, and they're making errors in what they believe. And while they accept that Jesus was raised from the dead, they think that's the end of that story. Good for Jesus, I guess. But Paul is scandalized by that. He spends much of the beginning of this letter focusing on how central Jesus' crucifixion is to the understanding of the life of faith. But here in chapter 15, he makes it clear Jesus' resurrection is the linchpin of the whole faith. It's the linchpin of everything. If Jesus wasn't raised, all of this is for nothing, and we are fools. Because Jesus' resurrection is only the first step. He is, according to Paul, the first fruit, the new Adam, the human that all other humans are connected to and redeemed through and inheritors of. Paul is adamant. Jesus is raised from the dead, and so will be all of you. Ultimately, death won't be able to hold any of the people of God in their tombs. That promise, my friends, is a threat to those who hold power. because those who wield power determine the shape and scope and limits of not only our lives, but our deaths. Over and over and over again throughout history and in our present day, we see presidents and kings, tyrants and petty rulers using death specifically to exert control, to exert power over all people, especially those who stand against them. That threat of death keeps people quiet when they should speak, keeps people complying when they would resist, keeps people from building communities of resistance and flourishing. So when Paul says that the resurrection is not just Jesus' story, but the Corinthians' story too, he's telling them that death, the last and final weapon that Rome can wield against them, is ultimately a tool for the weak. Because death, the final enemy, will be brought under Christ's authority and control, and death will be broken. There's a reason that for the first several centuries of the faith, the most common converts to Jesus were slaves and the poor and widows and the forgotten. There's a reason that for the first several centuries of our faith, the Roman Empire ruthlessly attempted to control, limit, and then just kill the growing Christian movement. These outcasts, these folks that Rome tried to unperson, were unafraid of the death that Rome wielded, and they wouldn't stop being faithful no matter the consequences they faced. Resurrection made them ungovernable by an empire that depended on violence to control. That's the reason the church for the last 2,000 years has put out all of the stops for Easter Sunday. Every year we are crying out a radical alteration of reality itself. Every year we are remembering the first steps that God makes towards breaking the chains of every wicked power over us. Every year, we tell each other the worst thing that oppressive powers can do to you will be undone by God's power. This is a message of audacious liberation. Easter people are not people who can be cowed by the wicked rulers of our time. Easter people are not people who will violate their conscience or their faith to protect themselves. Liberated from the fear of the finality of death, we are empowered to disrupt these broken systems we live in and to build life-giving systems instead. Will our own empire threaten us? Try to coerce us with violence and suffering and pain? Of course, that's what empires always do. But resurrection people who know that every power and every empire, even death, will be conquered and broken, they have what it takes to stand strong against threats, against coercion, against pain. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed is more than just a catchy call and response that we share together on this day. It's our anthem. It's our pep talk. It's our source of bravery and generosity and hope. It's our reminder to each other that God has begun a great work in the world, and that work will include all of us. When the powers that rule over us try to force us to betray what is good and right, we say, Christ is risen. When the powers that rule over us